And so I started going down. And at that time, I didn't know, like, I mean, my gosh, it was the mid 90s, and, natural wellness was not really, in the way it is such a prominent kind of option today. And so I went to my doctor, because that's what everybody does. You go to your doctor. And so she gave me some medication. She thought maybe it was an ulcer. Over the next 6 months, I went through a battery of tests. And all I found was every time I went for a new test, there were still no answers, but there was more medication. So literally, I was probably on about 8 or 9 different medications. And some of those medications were to counteract the side effects of other medications. And my thought was, how do I live the rest of my life like this? How do I be a mom? I was newly married. Like, I just couldn't understand how I was going to live my life like this every single day. And so I used to be very, what I would say, hardcore fitness, lots of boot camps, lots of ballistic training, because back in the day, right, we believed that the harder your body hurt, the better that workout was, right? And I thought there has to be a different way. My body hurts when I move. My body hurts when I don't move. And that's when I walked into my very first Pilates class, and it absolutely was a game changer. I mean, it transformed my life. After about 16 weeks of movement, I was off a lot of my medication, but I didn't understand why. I went to my class twice a week. I would lay my mat down. The class was full of people, kind of my mom and dad's age, but their bodies were doing things that mine couldn't. I couldn't even take a deep breath into my belly. We're going to talk about diaphragmatic breathing. I couldn't even do that. All of my breathing was up into my collarbone, into my neck. I had tons of neck tension, lots of headaches all the time. But I thought my fitness was it's what I should be doing, right? That's what everybody was doing. And so, you know what, I just had this thirst to learn more, and I got certified. I started teaching out of my home. I started sharing my knowledge with people around me. And even though I was working as a business consultant at the time, I loved educating about fitness and movement and telling my story. And it really created this whole career shift for me. So 11 years ago, I started teaching just to my friends and family out of my basement. 18 months later, I was teaching 16 classes a week. I was teaching about 20 hours of privates, and I realized that I had to make a shift. My passion was movement and fitness, Pilates style. And that's what I did. So in 2010, we opened our first studio here, actually in Saskatoon, which is just up the road from Regina. But so we opened our first studio, and about 4 years ago now, I'm just grabbing the charger here. Thank you, Caitlin. About 4 years ago, we expanded to our location, and we now have a clinic. So I realized that movement alone, just like physiotherapy alone, or just like chiropractic alone, we're not a one-size-fits-all kind of being. We are a system. And so my business now is Lead Integrated Health Therapies, Lead Pilates under one roof. We have a team of 40 people that work to bring health and wellness to the people around Saskatoon. We teach about 80 classes a week, and we just launched an online platform last month, actually. So now taking what we know and bringing it worldwide, because there's not a lot of fitness and movement that focuses on the slow and steady change that has to happen neuromuscularly and biomechanically to make a difference. And I mean, in that whole experience over the last 11 years, my health issues have been dealt with. Our middle son, who is now 16 last year, we're coming up to 1 year with him. He had a tremendous health crisis. We ended up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. As a mom, I just didn't know what to do. I reached out to Evan. Actually, Copaiba has become a staple in Will's life. He is not on any medication at all. And I swear that it is because of that magic oil that keeps his anxiety, his pain, helps with his sleep. right now I am diffusing my oregano frankincense on guard to just keep our immunity up as we get into this cold and flu season. And so that's a little bit about me. And I wanted to kind of set the stage for what I want to share with you today as 3 very simple game changers. I think a lot of people feel like health and wellness has to be something they have to do, every single day, and they have to check the box that they went for their run or their walk or they did their class. But there's sometimes where that time just is not available. So what do you do to make sure that you are optimizing your body, as a system so that you can, be the best, mom and wife and sister and daughter, business colleague that you can be?
Mm-hmm. Jana, thank you for this great introduction to our viewers. And I would like to say, because you said you've been doing this for 11 years. Mm-hmm. And in 11 years where you came and I saw I'm a part of your fitness program, or not fitness program, Pilates program online. Yeah. I had the opportunity to test it out and I love it. What I have to say, why I love it so much is because it's simple. Each session, it's 30 minutes long, about 30, there is one I saw so far 40 minutes, but about 30 minutes long. Yeah. You feel muscles you've never properly felt before, because as a personal trainer, we quite often focus on parts of the body. And what I loved in one of your videos, you said, we are working this body or our body as a system. We are not focusing on one part at a time. Do you want to share something about that piece with us?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, and you hear people who traditionally maybe have been gym goers or weightlifters, and they'll do their upper body day or their arm day or their leg day or their, shoulder day or core day. And I think that the biggest missing piece with that is that we are not a puzzle, right? We are not pieces that are put together to create a whole. We are a series of systems. So we have our bones, we have our skeleton, we have our muscular system, we have our fascial system, which is soft tissue that can really impact joint range of motion, blood flow, posture, all that kind of stuff. And then we have all our other systems. We have digestion and elimination. We have our circulatory system, our nervous system, our digestive system. And that is what I believe 100% was going on in my body back in the mid-90s, was that my systems were not talking to each other. My fascia was so locked down. I looked healthy, but I couldn't bring my arm up over my head because I was just so tight. I didn't, my sleep was impacted. And so if you look at your body as pieces and you don't work those pieces equally, and we never do, life is just like that. We have a preference for what hand do we write with, what shoulder do we put our purse on, when we're driving in our car, do we lean, all those preferences, even from sports we played as kids or, old injuries, all that kind of stuff, it leaves its thumbprint on who we are. Mm-hmm. And if we continue to look at the piece strategy, it's only a matter of time before those pieces are not equal and the equity starts to break down. And then the body is so smart that it'll start to compensate. So if I have, and the example I love using, and even if you're not a fan of golf, everybody knows Tiger Woods is a professional athlete, right? A friend of mine in the States wrote an article probably about 8 or 9 years ago now about Tiger Woods. He sustained an ankle injury in his left ankle when he was in high school that was never properly rehabilitated. By the time he was at Stanford in university playing golf, he had an issue with his right knee. So his left ankle injury, his right knee had to compensate over those years. All of a sudden, but really not all of a sudden, his right knee started giving him trouble. Then fast forward a few more years, his left hip. So it went almost like a tic-tac-toe board. Left ankle, right knee, left hip. And then it settled into his thoracic spine. So the part of the spine that is the length of your rib cage. And so we would be very naive to think that, an injury or working our body in pieces doesn't impact anything else, because it absolutely does. And we hear a lot about that even now with the gut brain phenomenon. And I think with Will, my son, that's a lot of what is going on with Will. what I've learned over the past year is people can be divided into 3 groups. They're either, they take their stress and anxiety in their head and they become headache people. And I'm putting these labels very loosely. They get, there's also people that are heart people, right? Mm-hmm. They'll get heart palpitations. They'll almost have like those panic attack type sensations. And then there's the gut people, okay? And so when this direct link between the head and the gut is, it's not just like, there's so much research on there now that, you know, when we are working these pieces, they absolutely impact that digestion, that circulation, all of those, you know, all those really important parts that make us feel like we are optimizing our health, like we have energy for our families, like we can, you know, attack our business every single day with energy. And if we shift our focus, because it's a mindset shift. So if you shift your paradigm, I always think it's very similar to, you know, why do we use oils, right? The oils give the body its natural ability to do what it's meant to do. Our body is meant to heal naturally. 2,000 years ago, if we were cavemen and women and we got hurt, what would happen? You either found natural medicinal ways to heal or you died, right? That was the option. And so sometimes our body just needs a little bit of nurturing to put it into a position where it has the possibility to heal. And you can completely rewrite your story. You don't have to be like me. I don't know where I would be 20 years fast forward. Could you imagine if my body had been dealing with all that medication and all that pain for 20 years? Right. I guarantee you, I wouldn't feel like I do. I wouldn't look like I do. I may not have the business that I have because that takes a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. My family might be very different. So, that's that whole pieces versus the whole concept that I love sharing with people.
I love that explanation about 3 kinds of people, what you mentioned. That totally makes sense. And, you know, many times I hear it just happened. What you said about Tiger Woods, nothing just happens.
No.
Over the time. Yeah. And everything is like a puzzle. And we are trying to look for all kind of tools. But if we are not doing the basics, let's say like breathing, or supplying the body with, let's say, proper water. We can try to find so many tools, but we are not gonna probably get much better. But how about we go straight to our 3 topics for today? Sure. One of them is diaphragmatic breathing. I love to talk about breathing. Many of my calls were about breathing because this is the basic for our survivor and for our life. So how about you share about that?
For sure. All right, I'm gonna paint you a very simple picture. Okay. So when you're driving in your vehicle and your vehicle gets low on gas, you know how the little orange light comes on that tells you have low fuel. So if you think about the trillions of cells in your body that make you who you are, when we have a lack of oxygen, it's like those trillions and trillions of little gas tanks are all on low fuel. And this is a big problem because those cells don't say to you, you're low on fuel, so you're going to start to feel maybe a little tired, or you might start to feel a little bit of brain fog, or it just starts to happen, right? And then that becomes your new reality. You're like, why do I have these, you know, headaches all of a sudden, or why am I feeling so sluggish all of a sudden? And so from a very fundamental physiological perspective, when our cells are not optimally cared for by oxygen, healthy, nutrient-rich blood flow, hydrating the body, then we are going to be at a disadvantage just in life. So the diaphragm is a muscle that lives in our torso. Okay, it looks like an upside down umbrella, and it kind of sits right at the top crest of the rib cage. Okay. So if you are what I call a collarbone breather, you are someone who has learned that your breath only has to go about this far, okay? When a newborn baby is laid on their back, you see their tummy rise and fall with every single breath. That is the optimal example of diaphragmatic breathing, okay? it's not realistic for us to breathe that way every single breath we take. But what happens when we are low on oxygen? We open our mouth really wide and we yawn. So we are trained to think that yawning is when we are getting tired. Well, why are we getting tired mid-morning or early afternoon when we've had a good night's sleep? When you do not breathe for your body is going to make you breathe for it in ways like yawning. So you will open your mouth up, you will take in big gulps of oxygen, and that is one of the body's ways of saying, I need more. My gas tanks are empty. So the next time you're around someone and they're yawning, I always think to myself, they don't think I'm boring. They're just oxygenating their body. So that's really what yawning is all about. It gives you a new perspective. When you start breathing this way, I want to let you know that you are going to feel a little bit lightheaded. Okay. So don't be doing this when you are driving, when you're first learning how to do this. Make sure you are in a safe place. But the concept of diaphragmatic breathing is to use the diaphragm. It's a muscle, you guys. Just like, our biceps, our glutes, our quads. If we don't work those muscles, they're not going to work for us. This muscle, the diaphragm, has to work. So the breathing is in through your nose and out through your mouth. And at the end of the call, I know Eva's going to put up my website because I actually have 3 free videos that I would love to gift you. And one of those videos is all about diaphragmatic breathing. So I don't want to spend a ton of time going through the pieces because there's a whole 10-minute video about it. But just in kind of to summarize, there, she's so great. She put the website up already. You breathe in through your nose, and if you had one hand on your sternum and one hand on your belly button, when you inhale through your nose, you want the bottom hand on your belly button to fill with air more than your top hand. If your top hand is filling more, you are one of those collarbone breathers. I call you my fish breathers, like fish breathe with their gills. We do have muscles called the scalenes in our neck. They are secondary breathing muscles, but most of us use them as our primary breather. And that's why we have a lot of upper back, neck, jaw tension, because we're using these muscles not only to hold up our head, which is a really important job, we're also using these muscles to breathe, and they're not built for that. So the big inhale through your nose, it's like you're smelling a fresh baked apple pie. And the exhale is out the mouth, and it has a bit of a sound. It's a okay. So it's almost like when my youngest son was about 6, he would say, it's like a friendly dragon. So you want to just go, and then the belly button comes back toward the body. So again, I'm going to refer you to that video because it really does dissect this in a much better way than I could do it in 3 or 4 minutes. But I guarantee that if you did that 10 to 12 times in the morning before you got out of bed, 10 to 12 times midday, and 10 to 12 times at night, it would absolutely change the physicality of your cells. The cells want to flourish. The cells want to do their job in a really good way. But if you do not set them up for success, they just absolutely cannot do that. It's like if you didn't water a plant for a month, what would that plant look like? The leaves would be wilted. There would be no vigor. The soil would be cracked. That's just like our body. And so the diaphragmatic breathing actually leads quite nicely into the next piece that I want to talk about, which is the pelvic floor. And we talked about earlier just how our society, you see it in ads on TV, you see the ads for the Depends, the adult diapers, and you see now like this girl, she's a rock star, she's on stage and she's wearing them, and you see these big masculine construction men and they're wearing them, and you see a businesswoman in her suit with a briefcase. And it just is disheartening to me because we are telling society that this is the solution to a problem that is about our muscles. And again, in 95% of the case of pelvic floor dysfunction, whether you are coughing and, peeing yourself a little bit, in a male's body, 95% of erectile dysfunction is a fitness issue, not a medical issue. So there's millions of men around the world that have felt like they have to go and take a pill to be able to feel manly. And it is so unfortunate that that is the solution that we have created for our society, because it doesn't have to be that way. So understand that when you're breathing diaphragmatically, the diaphragm is the roof of your core. The pelvic floor is the floor of your core. And the cylinder of your core is made up of 4 different abdominal muscles. The 6-pack muscle, which we see on billboards and in magazines, right? The rectus abs. We have internal and external obliques that make almost like this pageant sash X shape at the front and the back of our body. Someone calls our name, we turn. We are shoulder checking when we're driving, we're turning. We reach down to pick up something off the floor. The obliques give us side bending, they give us rotation. But the muscle that is deepest to our core, our organs, is called the transverse abs. And I'm making this circular motion with my fingers because they actually start in the back and wrap to the front like a big belt, okay? When your roof and your floor work together, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, you can achieve so much more from a core strength perspective, from a posture perspective. And that's why when you are, I mean, we've heard of Kegels. I think a Kegel is a very dramatic way to feel the pelvic floor work. As you exhale in your diaphragmatic breathing, which I'll talk about in the video, and I hope you sign up for it because it's a free video, you'll understand that the exhale phase of breathing is where that pelvic floor should be picked up. And I was at a training one time, and this woman, she was brilliant. She said, and it sounds kind of funny, but she said, visualize you are picking up grapes with your vagina. You don't want to squash that grape, but you want to gently lift and then lower and lift and lower. And I can't tell you how many, thousands of women, you guys, and men too, that we have helped change they've changed their whole life because they have felt like, kind of like I did 20 years ago, my life was a list of medication. They feel like their life is always worrying, where's the next bathroom, or taking an extra change of clothes. And it does not have to be that way. So the pelvic floor is a group of muscles. Please understand that. There is, through the diaphragmatic breathing, one of the best ways to strengthen that muscle and learn how to relax. A muscle has to work and rest. Muscles can't be working all the time. That's when we get a lot of unnecessary tension. And so understanding that rhythm, okay, just like our heartbeats, the rhythm of the pelvic floor and the diaphragm match, okay? So you inhale, your lungs fill with air, your diaphragm gets out of the way, the pelvic floor relaxes. When you exhale, the lungs empty with air, the diaphragm kind of puffs back up and the pelvic floor responds. So when you're going to pick up a heavy box, you want to do that on the exhale because that's when the pelvic floor, those core muscles, those cylinder muscles are going to support your spine. So you don't get those little aches and pains, those little tweaks that we see people come into the clinic all the time with because they weren't organized in their movement, in their breathing. And then that all plugs into posture. Okay, so how are you sitting? How are you standing? Understand that posture is a mathematical equation. When you are standing tall, you want to have 60% of your weight back on the big heel bone called the calcaneus. And you want to have 40% of your weight across the widest part of your foot, not the toe pads, but the widest part of your foot, which are knuckles, called the metatarsals. That's where you want to distribute your weight. Too many of us live like I call it ski jumper posture. We live with too much weight forward onto our toes. Our quadricep muscles work way too hard. Our rib cage kind of pops forward. Every step we take has unnecessary stress and tension in the low back. I mean, good thing for us, we have things like Deep Blue, right? I love my Deep Blue lotion. My boys love the oil. And so, yes, there are ways we can, help our body when we have sore muscles or little tweaks in our back. But understanding that breathing impacts our pelvic floor, impacts our posture, those would be, and you guys, you know what? These are like, this is minutes a day, and this costs you, it's nothing. It doesn't cost you anything. It just costs you a little bit of time to become just aware of how am I breathing? How am I standing? When you're sitting, do you feel those bony sit bones underneath you, or do you feel like you are, kind of rounded with your pelvis? It's just, it really is, it starts with awareness. And if that's what I can leave you with today, is just that focus on awareness. Where am I in space? Am I giving this body? We only have one of these. We don't get to trade it in. It wasn't meant to get replacement parts. So, knee replacements, hip replacements, our body wasn't meant to have those things. Those things have come about because of the way we stand, the way we sit, the way we treat our body. So I guess those are my takeaways. Those are my easy, simple shifts that can just yield really big dividends.
Wow, Jana, in 5 to 10 minutes, we got such a huge download here. And as you were speaking, I felt like we should be talking about each, like diaphragmatic breathing, posture, and pelvic floor. We should have live call for each of them because we can talk about it so much, or you can talk about
Absolutely.
it so much.
Yeah.
It would be great to have you again in one of our live calls. And so, a quick question, because we are giving here a website for people.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are viewing right now, I see there are some people online right now. You have a chance to get a free 3 videos, right? 3 videos.
Yeah.
I don't know how long are those videos.
Well, you know, what I did is I packaged together 3 really unique videos. So there's actually a workout, a 30-minute workout called Align and Tone. And I love that workout because we forget that movement needs to be, our body is meant to be aligned. Okay. So there's lots of information in Align and Tone. Then you're going to get the diaphragmatic breathing video. And the other video I put in there is something called the pelvic list. Now the pelvic list actually is a phase of our walking gait. So how we walk, there's a muscle called the glute med. And in 90% of the population, because we stand with too much turnout in our feet, like a duck, I call it, that muscle does not work properly. What that leads to is a lot of low back pain, a lot of hip discomfort because that muscle doesn't hold the legs in proper alignment. So those 3 videos together can work as individuals, or if you watch the 3 of them, you'll see how I weave a lot of these concepts together. And even just those 3 videos, if you were to do them, only those 3, you would absolutely, after 5 or 6 or 7 days, start to feel a difference in how your body is moving.
I love it. You know, for those of you who are watching right now or viewing later on after the live call, you have nothing to lose. Just sign up for her 3 videos because you are going to start or be aware. I like what you said, just to start being aware of your body, of your posture, of your breathing. And I just want to add to this just something small because I've been doing my breathing technique every morning for last 5-6 years, about 5 years. And when I stopped breathing for a few months, I could tell the difference. I mean, stopped breathing for a few months. When I stopped practicing the breathing, I could tell something is not right. I could tell I'm not breathing fully into my diaphragm. So just to become aware, I think it's a great bonus right here for you. So Jana, just in closure, because we are running out of time, I'm so happy to have you here for half an hour. And in closure, because again, many people will say, well, but I don't have time for half an hour. Where they can start? What is the base where to start?
You know what, Eva, it really is the diaphragmatic breathing. I mean, Joseph Pilates, who is the man that created the whole system of Pilates, one of my favorite quotes from Joe is, breathing is the first and the last act of life. And somewhere in the middle, we forget how to do it. And it really, you know, you can eat all the nutritious food you want. You can use your oils, you can drink your water, but if you're not properly feeding, like I said, those trillions of cells that make you who you are, the rest will not ever be optimized. It'll be good, but it will never be as good as it can be. So you can't tell me that you don't, like, there's, like I said, 10 breaths in the morning, 10 midday, and 10 at night. You can be doing it while you're doing something else. It costs you nothing but maybe 30 seconds 3 times a day. And that will be enough. And sometimes it's enough to make you feel different enough that all of a sudden you are reaching for your water a little bit more and you are maybe reaching for a healthier snack. And so it really can be that the baseline for so many more layers of health and wellness.
I love that. Last question, because I just put, again, your website in. Is there any other Facebook page or social media where they can find you? If you can, I'll just type it in. Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. So on Facebook, just Metta District, and then same thing on Instagram, Metta District. And if you're ever near or in the Saskatoon area, Lead Pilates and Lead Integrated Health Therapies is where we are in Saskatoon. And again, would love to chat or call. I mean, I get questions from all over the world, and that's the reason that we went with the online platform, was to be able to bring this information to people everywhere, because we need to kind of start, I mean, no pun intended, but we need to start a movement. We need to understand that fitness doesn't have to be, leave your puddle of sweat on the floor, and that's awesome. But without the fundamentals, that stuff isn't as rich as it could or should be.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jana, again, for being here. And I hope to see you on another live call, possibly, or we'll see you on the inside of your course.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jana. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.